Why don't you get something special for Grandpa? I'm sorry. Can I return the cake, please?
Sure, yes.
I want the cake, please. I won't ask for anything else.
Next time, okay? When we can afford it?
Last time you said that.
You don't want this? I'll take it back. Hey, hey, hey. Hello, this is for you.
No, we cannot accept it.
Would you please?
There's no reason for you to buy the cake for us.
Well, when I was 7, my mother wanted to buy me a cake.
Mommy, I want this one.
But at the counter, we didn't have enough.
Can we get something else?
It's my birthday today. Can I choose my own cake, please?
I'm sorry.
Then, there's this man. I've never met him before.
Here, have the cake. Happy birthday.
I didn't know his name. I never got a chance to say thank you. I've never forgotten about him. The man in the queue.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Can I have your contact number? Let me repay you when we have the money.
Promise me something, okay? Someday, when you're able to help somebody, you will do it?
May I know your name, mister?
Well, I'm the man in the queue.
I chose this cake for your birthday.
Wow, this is my favorite. Thank you.
Let's go and put some candles.
Oh, careful. You shouldn't have spent the money.
Actually, I came and paid for it.
He give me this note.
Please write down your address. I'll bring the money back to you later.
A simple act of caring creates an endless ripple.
That comes back to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Growing up in Brazil, I used to hear one thing all the time, and it was, you should be nice to others. But when I was a kid, I really didn't understand why. Why couldn't I just have all the toys to myself? But, like most things in life, my parents were right. There is a very high correlation between how kind you are and how happy you feel. So being kind makes you happier, and happy people are just more naturally inclined to be nice. So it's a win-win situation, and I don't think I was taking too much advantage of it. At least not until I moved to New York in 2009. I was there to get my master's in design and technology, and it didn't take me too long to realize it was a little bit different than what I was used to. Being there was my lifelong dream. So there I was, looking at the Empire State, getting coffee at Soho, biking at the Hudson River, and doing all those things I've ever wanted. But deep inside, I was not feeling happy. I was, in fact, feeling very lonely. Even though I was around thousands of people every day, I was really lacking meaningful interactions. All those little things that I used to take granted in Brazil, like the random smiles, the small talks, and even the complete lack of personal space. I started missing that because it was starting to affect who I was. It's not that people were being mean or anything like that, but they were just not as open as I was used to, and as a consequence, I started closing myself. The issue, though, it didn't become pretty obvious until I went back home for a winter break, and then suddenly I can't stop hugging everyone I knew non-stop, and I didn't want to let them go. It turns out, I figured out that there is a limit for how affectionate you can be, even for Brazilians. My friends started to think I was a little bit too creepy. So when I came back to New York, I decided to research kindness. Because I had a master's thesis to write, after all, so what not a better way to spend it than finding how to make people nicer to me? I found out that when people are exposed to something nice on their routine, they are more inclined to be nice towards others. It doesn't need to be something big, just meaningful enough to trigger their brain in a positive way. So I kept thinking, well, people are definitely not waiting for others to be nice in New York. So maybe if they're surprised by me being nice to them, then they will be more inclined to pay it forward. And then maybe kindness can spread like fire. And then maybe I can be the fire starter. So to test all these expectations, I started creating a series of urban interventions to bring joy to the routine of New Yorker. I just wanted to rearrange unpleasant situations in a way that would be more fun. Some of them were very small. So for example, this time, I would just share my umbrella with strangers every time that it was raining. And I know here in LA it's hard to relate because it doesn't rain much. And if it rains, then you're in your car. But in Manhattan, it worked really well. Then other times, I would just go to Times Square and I'll play games with people that had to wait in lines because I thought it would help them pass the time. And some people complained that they didn't have time for exercise, so I started dancing with strangers on the sidewalk as they're on their way to get somewhere, so then there are no excuses. Other interventions, on the other hand, though, they were a little bit more elaborated. For example, on Valentine's Day, I set up a free compliments booth at Union Square. And as you can expect, I was just there and I would welcome everyone that came to me and I would give them a free compliment. And after a little bit, I realized that I was probably the person getting the most compliments of all. But before you think, was those dudes trying to get a last-minute date for Valentine's? That was not the case. There were people from all ages and genders and backgrounds. They were just so happy about getting compliments that they wanted to give it back. And another time, I went to the subway station on 6th Avenue and 23rd to offer free coffee. I heard from some people that they had to wake up really early to go to work, and sometimes they didn't even have time for coffee. So I thought that I wanted to make it easy for them. Before I did that, though, my classmates warned me. They said, Isa, nobody's gonna take drinks from strangers in New York. I thought it was worth testing. And in fact, it did take a little bit for the first person to arrive, but then that was all it took. And there was a line of people because it's free coffee. And they were being happier after. Then another very good friend of mine, he challenged me. He said, Isa, you know it's only working because it's you and you look harmless. If it was me, that would never happen. So I'm like, yeah? So why don't you try then? So there was this big bearded guy, and I made him go to the subway station and hold a bright pink sign saying, would you smile for me? And people smiled to him as well. Part of me was a little bit hurt because I wanted to feel special, but the other part was very happy that I proved my point, that people are not judgmental, at least not as much as we expected. And after a full year of doing these interventions, suddenly I'm not only feeling so much happier, I'm also getting all this love from complete strangers. The same people that before were even avoiding my eye contact are now hugging me and saying all those sorts of nice things. It turned out that for me to change the world around me, all I needed to do was to change myself and be the person to take the first step and be kind, no matter what. But I also learned throughout that year that being kind was not such a thoughtless process as I once assumed, but was perfectly doable after I came up with 3 steps to help me get there. The first step was to make a mental decision every day to go out there and be kind. One can argue that if you're not being mean or rude and if you're polite, you're therefore being nice. But for me, I wanted to come from a deeper place in my heart. I wanted to come from a conscious decision of getting out of my comfort zone and doing something meaningful just for the sake of it. And I've been telling about these interventions to you, and I was doing those interventions, so you might be thinking I'm a real extrovert. But that was really not the case. I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out now. I was freaking out back then. I just found my own ways to trick myself so I couldn't walk away. I would find someone beforehand to volunteer and record, or I would just put on the internet saying, I'll be at this place at this time doing that thing, and now the Facebook knows about it. I have to do it. But what was very uncomfortable for me at first, I started little by little and became much better to the point that I started craving those interactions. But it did have to come from that first step and that first decision. The second step, that was the hardest one, but also the most meaningful. I had to learn to accept my own vulnerability. And it's hard because we all got hurt before, and we learn how to defend ourselves against it. But for me, I couldn't be genuinely nice if part of me was holding me down on their fear of being rejected or feeling exposed. But if there is one thing I learned the most, is that people are not desensitized to kindness, not even New Yorkers. The moment that they understand that your intentions are good, then they relax and they let themselves in. And that's how I was able to build connections. That's how I became happier. The moment that I learned just to accept and take the initiative to go there and be kind without knowing what to expect from them. Which takes me to the third step, which was the easiest one, the actual implementation, was just do it. And it was about finding those little opportunities throughout the day to bring the best on you. Like holding the elevator door for someone you kind of know is behind you. Or maybe just leaving some extra time on the meter if someone has to park and they're on a hurry. Or just even asking your coworker how their day is going, but really mean it. And be prepared if they say that it's not going well. But going through this process over and over really changed my life. It took me from a very stressful moment to one of the most positive experiences I've ever had. But most of all, it taught me how to take ownership of my own happiness. And it was as easy as being the first person to go out there and be kind without knowing what to expect. So now I'm a really deep believer that we can all improve the world through kindness. All we need is a bunch of fire starters. And I'm looking at you. So in order to set the fire going, I left a little note under your seat, and I hope you enjoy it.
In a world of 7 billion unique people, of all different backgrounds, ethnicities, languages, religions, economic standings, and values. It's easy to say, I can't relate. In a world of 7 billion people who all experience joy, pain, love, and hurt, it's even easier to say, I know how it feels. Our own vulnerability invites others to be more apt to sharing their own stories, creating stronger social ties. Nobody wants to feel alone in their struggles. It is when we learn to acknowledge and understand that everyone is going through their own set of battles, do we buy into a community. As a society, we look to solve social issues by simply addressing them. Pointing out our flaws is an important step in creating solutions, but I believe that the root of all evils we face are attributed to who we are as people. We ostracize differences in fear that we might be the different ones. We envy the lives of people we don't actually know out of insecurity of our own. And we join in on hateful behavior to prove that we are not weak. If everyone simply bought into the idea of just being kind to themselves and to others, the world would be a better place. Today, I'd like to look at 3 parts of being kind: harmlessness, humility, and honesty. All 3 collectively will reveal the power of kindness. Although we should not partake in kindness for the pat on the back or the affirmations thereafter, it is important to know that the person who most immediately benefits from an act of kindness is the one initiating the act themselves. Emory University conducted a study that illustrated the phenomenon of helper's high. When participants enacted kindness, the reward and pleasure centers of their brain lit up as if they were the ones receiving the kindness. Being kind releases serotonin into the body, a hormone known for healing wounds, calming the nervous system, and happiness. We all know what it's like to be stressed. Our bodies are tense, ready to fight or flight. This is because of the hormone cortisol. Being kind reduces the amount of cortisol being pushed into the body by combating it with another hormone known as oxytocin, which is protective towards the heart by decreasing blood pressure. That being said, stress and kindness are therefore opposites of one another. Stress makes us unhappy, kindness makes us happy. Stress weakens the immune system while kindness boosts it. Just to top it all off, stress speeds up aging while kindness slows aging. Perhaps the best things about kindness is that it's both teachable and contagious. Kindness is not only about helping others, but rather helping yourself. It is the most selfless, selfish act one could conduct. At first glance, harmlessness seems to be a passive quality, to do no harm. However, it is very much so an active quality as it requires self-awareness, intelligence, and goodwill. Think about all the ways people, perfect strangers even, can make your life miserable. Standing too close to you in an elevator, talking loudly on their cell phone in public, bringing in dirt from outside, not even attempting to laugh at your bad joke, or not saying thanks after you hold the door for them. Consciously or not, we all have been, and will be, slightly obnoxious. It is with harmlessness that we actively choose to make others' lives easier. This is a great example of harmlessness. Last year in one of my classes, this one boy had a particularly hard week. He was clearly stressed. He had bags under his eyes, and he complained tirelessly about how many assessments he had that week. But the thing was, he took his stress out on our teacher. He made these unwarranted rude comments for absolutely no reason, and it really bothered me. So I had a decision to make. I could call him out after class, tell him he was being a jerk, or I could let it go. In the end, I chose to let it go, not because I was afraid of what he might think of me after, but because he was already having a hard enough week. I didn't need to add to it. I knew that that kid wasn't fully represented in the comments he was making. I knew that he was an honest, good kid, and he was just having a bad week, so I let him have his bad week. But you see, harmlessness does not always mean treading lightly, like that example. Oftentimes it means going against the crowd, standing with an unpopular opinion, and ultimately choosing not to partake in the easy slander of the world, although everyone else might be. As philosopher Philo of Alexandria once said, "Be kind towards anyone you meet, because they are all engaged in a big battle." Remembering this common predicament makes us better people. We may only coexist and collaborate if we have respect towards one another. Now, this does not mean liking everyone. That's an impossible task. But it means that you have respect towards everyone's journeys, acknowledging that they all have their own battles, and you don't add any obstacles to it. Humility is not embarrassment. It is perhaps the greatest strength and tool for growth. In one of Goya's etchings, there's 2 words, on apprendo, which directly translates to, I am still learning. This is humility. In learning, those who think humbly of themselves often do better than those who think that they are overly confident in their ability, because they understand that they still have corrections to make and are thus more apt to listen and to learn. Humility begets our realization of our shared humanity. We are all fallible. However, it is when we learn not to dwell on our mistakes, but rather take them as lessons learned, do we lead better lives. If I do not try to be what I am not, I give myself permission to be who I am. Accepting who we are, the good and the bad, makes us better. Better capable of benevolent irony, better able to stay in our place and make room for others. To be honest, Mom, those genes don't really do you justice. Some would say this is too harsh to say to your mother. Others would say this is unapologetically honest. I would join the latter. You see, I could have let my mother buy the jeans, spend the money. She probably wouldn't have ever worn them ever again. But instead, I decided to tell an uncomfortable truth, and in my opinion, do her a favor. You see, honesty is the very basis of kindness, and that honesty lays the foundation for genuine acts of kindness that often tell uncomfortable truth. Being honest and kind is at times more difficult than saying yes when you mean no and smiling through the agony, yet it is always worth it. To be transparent is a biological relief. The lie detector test runs off the idea that when we lie, we subject our bodies to stress. After we invent the lie, we must keep the story, which only perpetuates anxiety. However, the brain tells the truth. We are therefore programmed to be sincere. So it's important for us to be honest with ourselves, because it is exhausting to live lives that are not our own. Take the Divine Comedy, the narrative of Dante's journey toward redemption, for example. The hypocrites in hell must wear lead capes painted gold. It's exhausting for them to wear these glamorous but false hoods every day that represent what they are not and what they will never be. The same goes for all of us. Being our truest selves alleviates the need to live a story that we did not write. So why do it? More often than not, we mask our emotions to save ourselves from judgment or to spare others from our apparent misery. Yet more often than not, when we share our own stories, we invite others to do the same, resulting in that key phrase, I know how it feels. It is when we learn that we are not the only person in that boat, that there are 7 billion other people going through their own set of struggles, but their struggles are much more similar to ours than they are different. We feel a bit better. So it's not only important to be honest with ourselves, but to each other. When someone asks how your day is, be honest. If your day sucks, just say it. When you ask someone how their day is, mean it. It is okay not to be okay. It is okay to tell someone that you're not doing so great. We, as a society, we have silenced that. We have shamed that. So it's time for us to tell uncomfortable truth. It's time for us to have a bit of humility, to be harmless, and to be honest. Honesty is the very basis of kindness because kindness cannot exist in a world of masks and illusions. I'd like to close today with a series of self-affirmations. In times of doubt and confusion, I ask you to remember this one thing. There are 7 billion people in this world. If you cannot find a kind person, be one, and you will start a change. It is time for us to be kind to ourselves after too many days of waking up, looking in the mirror, and saying, you are not enough. Enough of what? You are enough, you have always been enough, and you will always be enough. Here are the self-affirmations. I am at peace with all that has happened, is happening, and will happen, because I know that everything is towards my highest good. I am strong, confident, and kind. I accept others as they are, and in turn, they accept me as I am. I deserve all that is good. I release any need for misery and suffering. I am never alone. This one, I think, is the most important. I am never alone. Today, the door is open for all opportunities for me. I approve of myself. Thank you.